Hello and welcome back to another guide for Botania. Today we'll be going over pulse mana spreaders, the mana blaster, lenses, and what each of them do. So without further ado, let's just hop right into it. The pulse mana spreader is made by just taking a mana spreader and a redstone together. What this does is it means that it will only spread mana when supplied a redstone signal. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So we're over here with pulse mana spreader, flame, lever, redstone, mana pool. And as you can see, they're connected and they are full of mana. Now, if I turn this lever on, it will fire off a stream of mana, but only one, because it's only supplied a single redstone signal. This isn't a turn on and fire. This is every pulse of mana, every pulse of redstone it gets, it shoots off a thing of mana. So if I just start flipping this switch wildly, you can see all of the mana just get fired or transferred. This can offer better control over your mana spreaders. If you only want to send off a certain amount of mana, a certain amount of pulses, you might know how much mana is in each burst. The Mana Blaster is a portable mana spreader. To craft it, you need a pulse mana spreader, a rune of mana, mana diamond, TNT, and 2 living wood. So give you your Mana Blaster. If you have mana in your inventory linked through either a band of mana, mana tablet, or mana mirror, and then you right click, you'll fire off a stream of mana. As you can see, I've got an empty mana pool here, and if I right click on it, it has mana inserted into it. So this is a good way if you have to power flowers, any other thing that requires mana, and you don't want to have a dedicated mana spreader to it, or if you only want to fire it off occasionally. You can choose simply doing it just by right clicking. You can also insert mana lenses in here to augment your blaster as well as your mana spreaders. And let me go over all of those now. To make a mana lens, you need 4 mana steel and 1 glass, and this will give you 1 lens. This lens does not do much on its own, but it is the base item you need to craft all future lenses. One thing you can do is change the color of your mana burst. So by default, it's the nice lime green color, but if we come over here, as you can see on the board here, you can dye it any color you want. So let's go, you know what, I'm a fan of yellow. Let's take it, insert the lens by placing your mana blaster and your lens in a crafting bench, and then now that I right click, it's now yellow. Let's go, you know what, let's go like a stormtrooper and let's throw some red in. Also, as you saw, to remove it, just put your mana blaster into a crafting bench and it will take the lens out. Pew 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 pew. I'm like a stormtrooper, but hopefully I'll be able to hit something. You can also create a rainbow effect by taking any mana lens and a mana pearl, and this will give you your rainbow lens. Now if I right click, nope, that's green, you can see it slightly changing colors as it flies through the air. These colors effects can be applied to any lens in the future, and it will not change any functional use of them, it will just change the color of your mana burst. You can also combine lenses. For demonstration purposes, I'm using a lens of damaging and a lens bounce. If you take 2 lenses and a slime ball, it will look like whatever the front or leftmost lens is. In this case, it's a composite mana lens of damaging and bounce. If I take this, I place this, let me remove the previous one first. I place this in my mana blaster. Now when I right click, it bounces off objects, but also if it hits an entity, it will damage them. I will go over more about these lenses in a little bit, but before I do, I just want to say that I'm going to break up all the lenses into 3 different categories: Rune Lenses, Pre-Alfheim Lenses, and Post-Alfheim Lenses. And I'll go over them in that order. If you're looking for a specific lens, please check the description below for time codes and the name of each lens. The velocity lens will increase the speed of a mana burst and also the frequency for a mana spreader, but it will need a higher initial cost of mana. So if I power these two mana spreaders and they start to fire off their mana bursts, you can see the velocity one goes first and fires off quicker. But it will not transfer as much mana because it does cost more to fire off. To craft it, take a mana lens and a rune of air. The Potency Lens will double the amount of mana a burst can carry, but it will be slower. As you can see with the little mana streams, they are moving slower. And if we wait for it to fire, the one without the lens fires off first. But the second one fires off and it is actually carrying more mana. Exactly, it will count. It will move at least double. To craft it, take a mana lens and a rune of fire. The resistance lens will increase the amount of time a mana burst can go without losing mana, but it will slow it down slightly, as you can see. So it will increase the range of your spreader, but it will slow down the burst slightly. To craft it, take a mana lens and a rune of earth. The efficiency lens will decrease the amount of time for a mana burst to lose mana, but it will also decrease the rate of which mana is lost. Meaning technically it will decrease the range of the spreader, but it will allow more mana to be passed along the point of which it would normally lose it. To craft it, take a mana lens and a rune of water. The bounce lens will allow mana bursts to ricochet off solid surfaces until it loses mana. To craft it, you will need to take a mana lens and a rune of spring. And in front of me, you can see I have 3 targets and that tree over there. If I right click in these yellow squares, I fire off a mana burst, it goes all the way over past the tree. So just by right clicking, it goes bounce, 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 and it's over in that direction. I just stand there, go boink, 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 boink. Just start blasting it off. Again, this bounce off any surface as long as it doesn't accept mana. Just, I believe, yep. So by shooting it off of there, see if I can repeat it. Nope. I was able to actually get mana inside that mana spreader by bouncing off the nether portal, block of concrete into the mana spreader. The gravity lens will make your mana burst be affected by gravity similar to an arrow, and it will increase the amount of time until mana loss sets in. To craft it, take a mana lens and a rune of winter. So we have this mana spreader right here with the gravity lens on it, and we have a mana pool up there, and as you can see, it's not necessarily aiming correctly. So let me go and bind it. As you can see, it's bound, but it's still not reaching. That's because due to the gravity lens, it's actually arcing to the point of hitting here, even though a straight line would make it hit the pool. So if I would go and take the lens off, you can see it fires off the mana to the pool. And if I put the lens back on, it stops because it's not making contact with the mana pool. The damaging lens will have each burst do 8 points of damage to any creature it hits. To craft it, take a mana lens and a rune of wrath. So I got zombies in here. Let's just have a party. Let's just fill the room up. And now if I right click with my mana blaster, nope, you can't go through here. It fires and does damage. Specifically, like I said, 8 points of damage or 4 hearts. Now it also pierces enemies, as you can see, and it actually has a very generous range, at least around it. Some of these I'm not really hitting, but they're still getting hit, so I'm not going to argue. That is the lens of damaging, or the damaging lens. It's a nice ranged weapon to have, especially because it uses mana instead of arrows, and it fires in a straight line. The Entropic Lens will cause an explosion anytime a burst hits something that does not accept mana. To make it, take a mana lens and a rune of envy. So I'm in my nice little field outside my guide area, and let me just start right clicking around to make some explosions. This would do about the same. This would do a slightly smaller range than a TNT block, but you don't have to get gunpowder or sand. All it requires is mana. So it's nice if you need to blast out an area and don't want to make a bunch of TNT. Or maybe you want to do slightly more controlled demolition and don't want TNT flying everywhere by mistake. The messenger lens will decrease the amount of mana it sends, but increase the distance and the speed of the burst. To craft it, you need 1 mana lens and 4 paper. What I mean by this is that it won't be enough to power items long term, or even to throw into a mana pool. But if you do have various items as they're on this mods that just need mana to turn on, they do their thing and then turn off, this is a great lens for it. You don't have to spend too much time generating mana that might go to waste. The bore lens will break up to 5 blocks in a row when it comes in contact with the burst. To craft it, you'll need a mana lens, a piston, redstone, and 2 lapis. So what I mean by that is I have a couple displays here of grass, stone, iron, lapis, and obsidian. And I have my bore lens equipped to my mana blaster. If I right click, it will destroy 5 grass blocks, turning them into dirt blocks. 5 stone into cobblestone. And as you can see, it doesn't go fully through, it stops 5 blocks deep. If I do it to iron, it mines 5 iron. Lapis, it breaks lapis, but also gives you the actual lapis items instead of the ore. Lastly, obsidian. Now if I right click to hit the obsidian, it's not breaking. That is because the bore lens has a mining level of iron. So anything an iron pickaxe can break, your bore lens will be able to break as well. The phantom lens will allow your mana burst to pass through blocks, but it will lose mana quicker. To craft it, you need a mana lens and an obtruse platform. Since I've equipped my mana blaster and I got my row of crafting guides, let me right click with it and I go to the air, and as you can see, it dipped down into the ground, but it passed through the first few. Let's try it again, but aiming up, and you can see it pass through and dies off fairly quickly. Let's do it one more time. See, it goes up, goes through. Ooh, that made away a lot of them. Made away through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It went through 8 blocks, and I believe it ended on the 9th. So 1 mana burst can go about 8 blocks deep, but again, it went through 8 blocks, but it also went through the space in between where it also be losing mana. You can pair this up with other lenses, such as the damaging lens, to be able to hit enemies through walls. So if you have a mob spawner and you don't feel like having the little extra areas for them to see you, you can just blast them through a wall. The magnetization lens will make bursts home in on objects or blocks that use mana, and this will decrease the speed of the burst. To craft it, you need a mana lens, an iron ingot, and a gold ingot. So to demonstrate, I have my 2 mana pools here, Magnetization Lens in my blaster. So if I right click, you can see it. Oh wow, it actually homed onto this mana spreader. So let's go over here. So I can now right click and it homes onto the mana pool after I miss it. Sometimes it's not exactly perfect. It won't hit it just because you're aiming towards it. You do actually have to be somewhat close. Oh, that got struck down by that one. So if I aim for this one in the air, I'll aim below it. It aims up and it actually dies out up there. It is trying to get inserted into the mana pool, even though it's not making direct contact. This isn't like Wanted where you can just fire over here, and it just magically somehow makes its way into the pool, you do need to aim somewhat close to it or it will not make it. The influence lens will force dropped items, experience, and blocks to follow the direction of the burst. To craft it, you need 8 prismarine crystals, a rune of air, and a mana lens, and this will give you your influence lens. So as you can see right here, I just got stuff on the ground, and instead of me running all the way around to pick it up, I can simply right click with my influence lens and I can have it all go over there. Let's do it this way, all over there. Send you over. Oh wow, that went a lot further than I thought. And now all of it's in a nice, neat pile. Slightly further than I wanted it, but again, it's all nice, and there it is. The weight lens will apply a strong downward force on a block and make it fall like gravel or sand. To craft it, you need a mana lens, 8 prismarine crystals, and a rune of water. That will give you your weight lens. What this does is I have grass, stone, concrete, and obsidian in front of me here. You can see they're all just floating like normal. But if I hit them with the weight lens, grass falls, stone falls, concrete falls, but it will not work on obsidian. This is similar to a piston, and it will have blocks move around, and it cannot move blocks. A piston cannot move. So keep that in mind if you want to have items fall for whatever reason, playing games with friends or whatever. Just right click with the weight lens and blocks will fall from underneath things. The Kindle will set a block it hits on fire. It cannot set players or living creatures on fire just by hitting them, but it can light nether portals. To craft it, take a mana lens and a fire charge. To show you what I mean, if I right click the ground, I create a fire. I have a nether portal here, and I have a lit nether portal. Now if I go over to this horse over here, I'll right click the horse and it passes right through. So it can't set the horse on fire. But what it can do, not meant to do that, is it can set the block the horse is on fire. And that's, thought you had more health, horsey. And it also spreads fire just like normal. The force lens will push blocks similar to how a piston moves them, and it will not move blocks a piston cannot. To craft it, you need a mana lens and a force relay. So like I said, I got these blocks in front of me and I can just push them around similarly to a piston. Depending on what side I hit, the block will travel in that direction. So if I hit this side, it won't move because it can't move 2 blocks. But if I hit it from this side, that works. Shift that, move this cross block back into place, move it around, and just have some fun with it. The flash lens will create a torch-like light source that's the same color of the lens itself. To craft it, you need a mana lens, 4 fire charges, and 4 glowstone. You can swap the positions of the glowstone and the fire charges, just as long as they're in similar positions. What I mean by this is, let's go over to our little obsidian bunker. If any of you are able to see, we're in the obsidian bunker. And there's no lights in here. But you know what, instead of this being a place where we test out weapons, I want to live here now. But I also don't want torches everywhere, because I think torches are ugly. What I can do is I can right click with my flash lens, and I will create light sources. So they will look similar to kind of the mana burst, with this little like spark fire type thing going up. They'll have actual blocks, so you can break them if you want, but you can't pick them up. And they will provide the same amount of light as a torch, but you can place them in torches I can't go, such as on the top or underneath blocks technically. The Paintslinger Lens will dye blocks that can have their color change, such as concrete, clay, And you can also change the color of sheep as well. To craft it, you need a mana lens, 2 wool blocks, and 2 elementium. And as you can see, we have this nice, oddly colored creeper head. Creepers aren't supposed to be light blue, so let me change the color. If I right click with my Paintslinger Lens, it changes all the similar color connected blocks to that color. So it changed all of these to green and these blue to green as well. So now I have my correctly colored creeper head. If I want to come over here and maybe I change the center points of these targets to green, I can do that. If I want, I can change this whole big backdrop to green. Or if I go over here to my little sheep pen, you know what? I want some more green sheep. So let me change you to green, and as you can see, it changed the color of my white one over there as well. You green, you green, you green, and you know, pink sheep are rare, so I'll keep you. So now I got all of my sheep changed. I've also have all of my nice concrete areas changed as well, without having to make multiple versions of dye, having to cycle through everything, make sure I got enough concrete. I just have to make it all one color. And with my Paintslinger lens, I can make it how I want it. Green, green, green. Yay! The warp lens will allow mana bursts to collide with a force relay, and the burst will come out the other end of the length block. To craft it, you need a mana lens and a pixie dust. So as you can see, I have a force relay and a stone block in front of me, and they are now linked. So if I take my mana blaster with the warp lens on it and I fire off a burst into the force relay, it's supposed to come out the other side. Let's see. Let's try that. No. Oh, maybe I should shoot the stone block and it goes through. Nope. So after testing this warp lens for a long while, I couldn't really get it to work as it says. This is the force relay connected to a block. You can't connect a force relay to a force relay. It doesn't make it, for me, is not working. I'll try to experiment more, but this doesn't seem to really work for me. The Redirective Lens will only work on mana spreaders, and when one mana spreader hits another one with it, the target spreader will be aimed at the first one. To make it, you need a mana lens, a living wood, and an elementium ingot. Now, what I mean by this, I have mana spreader with the lens attached to it to another mana spreader, not directed at it. So let me steal a coal from here, and I will toss it on for this mana spreader. When it absorbs it and it fires, you can see, and now they're aiming at each other, and now they're just sending mana back and forth. That's all they're really doing. Personally, I'm not really too sure why this is a lens, but it does really create some cool effects, I will say. I might have to use this in a base sometime. Actually pretty nice. The Celebratory Lens will turn your mana burst into fireworks, the same color that the lens are dyed. To craft it, take a mana lens, a firework, and an elementium ingot. Now, what I mean by that is I have my light blue and my yellow Celebratory lenses. So if I fire off, switching in between, nothing happens. Because you're not supposed to fire them into the air, silly. You're supposed to fire them at the ground to spawn fireworks. Yay! Ooh, wow, that's actually... Oop, that hit my mana pool. And as fireworks go off, you can have a nice firework celebration just by using mana. You can apply these also onto mana spreaders and just have them fire off mana at the ground to just make a nice firework demonstration, instead of having to waste wastes the resources making all the fireworks. The flare lens completely changes the function of mana spreaders. It will send constant bursts of mana as the color that the lens are dyed without actually using or needing any mana. And they will go in the direction they are facing, as you can see in front of me. To craft it, you would need a mana lens, an alpha glass, and an elementium ingot. So as you can see, I have 5 mana spreaders with 5 different dyed flare lens on. The base version is white. I have a yellow, a red, a light blue, and a brown. And these are the effects they give. Now if I take out my mana spreader and look up, you can see that they still have their effective ranges. But they won't actually send mana anymore. They would store it, but there won't be much they can do with it, because they are now just constantly setting off these streams. And if I want to block off, let's say my red here, since there's a block in front of it, it can't send through it. So you can see it's now this little glowing ball all the way up to the final point of where it ends. These are purely cosmetic, and they don't really have a functional use to them, I guess. Similar to having 2 mana spreaders just fire mana back and forth, these are pretty nice, and you can actually make some pretty interesting displays out of these. I will definitely probably be using these in a base sometime soon. The Tripwire Lens will only allow the spreader to fire a living creature walks in line of the burst. To craft it, take a mana lens, a tripwire, and an elementium ingot. Such that I take out my wand, you can see that it goes all the way to this mana pool. So if I would happen to walk through, it would fire off a burst of mana. Walk through again, there it goes. So if you pair this lens with some of the other lenses available to you, you can create quite interesting combinations. And this also won't work with redstone on the pulse mana spreader, because the tripwire one will override it, meaning that anytime something walks through it, it will fire. Switching in between lenses can be a hassle of having to put your mana blaster in your inventory every single time to take them in and out. But you can store up to 6 lenses in one mana blaster with a lens clip. And to craft this, all you need is 5 dream wood. To equip it, just take your mana blaster and your lens clip into a crafting bench, and now it is equipped. And if you hold shift, you can hold up to 6 different lenses in one blaster. Let's take the one I've already put multiple ones in. If I hold shift, you can see I have a celebratory, composite one, flash, another composite, Paintslinger, and Entropic one. Just you can see that currently I have my celebratory one equipped. To switch it, hold shift and right click, and you would switch to your desired lens. Now I got my damaging bounce one equipped. Switch over to my flash to put up some lights. Bore and influence, so when I go mining, all of the blocks just end up at the end. Paint for, well, paint, ooh, didn't mean to do that. And Entropic just to blow stuff up. To switch lenses inside your lens clip, you must make sure you have your desired slot open, such as this one I have it empty, so I can put a force lens on. But now if I want to put this gravity lens on, it won't work, because it's already set to the force one. To switch it, just take it out, hold shift, right click to switch the spots, and put the new one in. So you can put, again, up to 6, just make sure you have the correct one set. If you want to take them out, just do it any other way, and then you'll get your lens out. Now you have all you need to continue your journey through Botania. That is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more Minecraft guides and the occasional other video. But thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye.